My husband had an affair with my sister. I found out everything and had to confront them both. We had been together for 5 years, and I always thought that we were one of those couples who had it all figured out. Sure, not every day was perfect, but I truly believed that we had something real, something that could withstand anything. Dimitri, my husband, and I had built a life together, a life filled with late night talks, shared dreams, and promises to one day grow old together. But, as I would soon find out, appearances can be deceiving. It started so subtly. Little things at first that I convinced myself were just a part of life. He'd stay late at work more than usual, cancel our plans with no explanation, and when I asked him about it, he'd shrug it off, saying he was stressed or just had too much on his plate. I didn't push the issue. After all, I knew Dimitri. He had always been the type to bottle things up, to avoid confrontation, so I let it slide. It was nothing to worry about, right? But then, the distance between us grew. It wasn't just about the late nights or the missed calls anymore. I started to notice that when we were together, something was off. Dimitri, the man I had once known inside and out, had become a stranger. He no longer looked at me the same way. The laughter we once shared felt forced. The affection I once craved was replaced with cold indifference. Something wasn't right, and I knew it. The hardest part was that I couldn't pinpoint when it all started to shift. It wasn't a singular event, but a series of small changes that added up over time. And yet, I tried to ignore the signs. I kept telling myself it was just stress, or that I was overthinking things. But deep down, I could feel the growing tension between us, the widening gap that neither of us knew how to fix. One night, as I was cleaning up the living room, I found an unfamiliar piece of jewelry on the coffee table. It was a delicate necklace, gold, with a small pendant in the shape of a heart. It wasn't mine. I didn't wear jewelry like that. Dimitri didn't have any sisters, so it couldn't belong to anyone in his family. I picked it up, running my fingers over it, wondering whose it could be. My mind raced. I felt a knot tightening in my stomach. I knew I had to confront him. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. This wasn't something I could just brush aside. When Dimitri came home that evening, I didn't waste any time. I showed him the necklace and asked the one question I had been dreading to ask. "Whose is this, Dimitri?" His face turned pale the moment I spoke. He tried to brush it off, telling me it was just something he picked up while traveling for work, that it didn't mean anything. But I could see the panic in his eyes. I didn't need him to explain further. I already knew. The reality hit me in waves. I wasn't ready for it. But somehow, I already knew what was coming. The pieces were all falling into place. He wasn't just being distant because of work. He had been hiding something from me, something far bigger than I was willing to admit. I pressed him, asking him who the necklace belonged to. His response was a stammered, broken excuse that didn't sit right with me. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I stared at him, waiting for the truth. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Dimitri sighed and looked at me. I've been seeing someone else. It's been going on for months. The words hit me like a slap to the face. The air in the room grew thick, and I felt my body go cold. It felt like the ground beneath me was shaking, and I couldn't find the words to respond. My mind was reeling, trying to process what I had just heard. "Who?" I whispered, barely able to speak. He hesitated for a moment, clearly struggling to find the right words. "It's Elena, your sister," he said, the words barely escaping his lips. I couldn't breathe. My sister. Elena. The person I had trusted more than anyone else in my life. The person I had confided in, shared my hopes and dreams with, had betrayed me. She had crossed a line I never imagined she would. My sister. The woman who was supposed to be my closest ally. I couldn't process it. I couldn't fathom the thought of it. How had I been so blind? How had I not seen the signs? It felt like a sick joke, something out of a nightmare. "Why?" was all I could manage to ask. "I don't know," Dimitri muttered, avoiding my gaze. "It just happened. We didn't plan for it, but it's real. I'm sorry." Sorry. The word seemed so empty. How could an apology fix this? How could an apology erase the years of trust I had built with him, the years of love that now felt like a lie? I didn't know what to say. I couldn't even look at him. The anger I felt was bubbling up inside me, but it was mixed with something else. Something far worse. Betrayal. A pain that I didn't know how to handle. "Get out," I said, my voice shaking. "I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear your excuses." Dimitri didn't argue. He stood there for a moment, looking at me with pleading eyes, but I couldn't bring myself to care anymore. He walked out, and I was left standing there, staring at the empty space he had just occupied, trying to make sense of everything that had just been revealed. But I didn't have to make sense of it. I already knew what I had to do. The days following Dimitri's confession were the hardest of my life. It felt like the world had been turned upside down. My heart was broken. But it wasn't just the betrayal that hurt. It was the way everything that I had built, everything I had trusted, had come crashing down in an instant. I stayed home for the first few days, not knowing what to do with myself. My phone was full of messages from friends and family, concerned about where I was and why I wasn't answering their calls. But I couldn't bring myself to speak to anyone. I didn't want to hear their pity. I didn't want to explain myself. It wasn't just the affair that I couldn't get over. It was the realization that everything I thought I knew about Dimitri was a lie. He wasn't the man I thought he was. I had trusted him with my heart, my life, and he had betrayed me in the worst way possible. And then there was Elena, my sister, the person I had trusted the most in this world. I couldn't even look at her the same way anymore. She had not only betrayed me, but had destroyed the very bond we had shared for years. We had been through so much together, shared secrets, cried over boys, laughed through the ups and downs of life. And now, she was the one who had turned my world upside down. I didn't know what hurt more, the betrayal from Dimitri or the one from Elena. I never imagined that they would hurt me like this. But now, here I was, standing at the crossroads of my life, trying to figure out how to move forward. It was a week before I could even bring myself to talk to Elena. I called her, my hands shaking as I pressed the phone to my ear. I couldn't even look at her when she answered. "Hey," she said softly, her voice barely audible. "I know you're upset. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Her words stung more than I was prepared for. I couldn't believe how easy it was for her to pretend like everything was okay, like we could just go back to being sisters after everything that had happened. "Did you ever think about me?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Did you ever think about how I would feel when I found out? Did you even consider the consequences?" "I never meant to hurt you," she replied, her voice thick with guilt. I was confused. Things just happened, and I didn't know how to handle it. Confused? That was her excuse? That was all she had? "You were never confused, Elena," I said, my voice cold. "You knew exactly what you were doing. You knew exactly what you were risking." I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not in front of her. Not when she had done something so unforgivable. "I'm so sorry, Sarah," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't know what to say. I wish I could take it back." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her how much she had hurt me, how much I felt betrayed by the person who was supposed to be the closest to me. But I didn't. I didn't want to give her that satisfaction. "Sorry doesn't cut it, Elena," I said, my words steady now. "You've ruined everything, and I don't know if I can ever forgive you." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing, and I knew she was crying. But I didn't care. She had made her choice. And now, I had to make mine. "I can't do this," I said finally, before hanging up the phone. I sat there for a while, letting the weight of the words sink in. I couldn't go back. I couldn't pretend like everything was fine. The truth had come out, and there was no erasing it. That night, I packed a small bag and left the apartment. I couldn't stay there anymore. I couldn't sleep in the bed where Dimitri and I had shared so many memories. I couldn't be surrounded by the things that had once been ours. So, I left. I went to my best friend's place and stayed with her for a while. I felt empty, like a part of me had been ripped away. I had no idea what was coming next. I didn't know how to move forward, how to fix this, or if it could even be fixed. But one thing was clear. I wasn't going to let this define me. I wasn't going to let Dimitri or Elena steal my sense of self. It wasn't easy, and the pain didn't disappear overnight. But I knew I had to rebuild my life, for myself, for my future. And no matter how much it hurt, I had to start moving forward. The days after the phone call with Elena were a blur. I was exhausted, emotionally, physically, mentally. I wasn't sleeping much, and when I did, the nightmares would wake me up in the middle of the night. I would see Dimitri and Elena together, laughing, touching, pretending like I didn't exist. The feeling of betrayal was suffocating. The pain of their deception was like a heavy weight on my chest that wouldn't lift. And for the first time in my life, I was forced to confront a reality that was so different from what I thought I knew. I stayed at my best friend Laura's apartment for a week, but even there, I couldn't escape the constant thoughts that kept me up at night. I tried to keep busy, to keep my mind occupied. Laura was an amazing friend, offering me support without pushing too hard. She knew I needed space to process everything, but at the same time, she knew I couldn't stay in this limbo forever. One afternoon, while I was scrolling through my phone, I got a text message from Dimitri. The text was simple, but it made my stomach churn. "I've been thinking about us a lot. I want to talk. Can we meet?" For a split second, I thought about ignoring it, letting it go. He had already done enough damage. But I couldn't. I couldn't keep running from it. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I had to face him. I had to confront this mess head on. And I had to make it clear that I wouldn't let him control my future, my happiness, or my sense of self. I agreed to meet him, told him to meet me at a cafe, a neutral ground, a place where we could talk without distractions. But as the time approached, I started to regret my decision. What would I say? What was the point of this meeting? There was no going back. The damage had already been done. But then I reminded myself that this wasn't just about him. This was about me, my healing, my closure. I couldn't let them continue to control my life, my emotions, without facing the truth. When I arrived at the cafe, Dimitri was already there, sitting at a table near the window. He looked the same, disheveled, his eyes tired, and yet there was something different in his expression, something almost vulnerable. I hated myself for feeling any ounce of sympathy for him, but I couldn't help it. Despite everything, he was still the man I had once loved. "Hey," he said softly as I sat down. There was a long pause before either of us spoke again. Neither of us knew how to start. "Dimitri, I don't know why we're here," I said, my voice steady. "I don't know what you want from me. You've already made your choices, and I've made mine. What's the point of this?" "I know I messed up, Sarah," he began. "I know I hurt you, and I can't take it back. But I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for closure, for both of us. I know I ruined everything, and I need you to know that I regret everything. I regret hurting you. I regret what happened with Elena. But most of all, I regret not being honest with you from the beginning." His words stung, but there was something different in the way he spoke this time. It wasn't the usual apologetic tone he used when he tried to manipulate his way back into my life. It was raw, real, and I could see the weight of his guilt on his face. I took a deep breath. "I don't need your regrets, Dimitri," I said, my voice firm but calm. "I need you to understand what you've done. You didn't just cheat on me. You didn't just lie. You destroyed everything I believed in. You took away my trust in you, in us, in love. And I can't just go back to that." I paused, my heart pounding. I've spent the last few weeks looking at everything through a different lens. I kept thinking about the person I was before all of this. I thought I knew who you were. And now, I realize that I don't. You've shown me who you really are. And it's not someone I can trust anymore." Dimitri's face dropped. He looked like he was about to say something, but I raised my hand, stopping him. "I don't need your explanation, Dimitri. I don't need you to tell me how sorry you are, because it doesn't change anything. You hurt me. And you hurt me in the worst possible way. Not just by cheating, but by lying to my face for so long. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you for that." His eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for him anymore. He had made his choice, and now I had to make mine. "I don't know what to say, Sarah," he whispered. "I can't fix this, but I need you to know that I never wanted to hurt you. And I need you to know that it's over," I said, standing up. "I'm done." I walked away from him that day, and I never looked back. It wasn't easy. It was the hardest thing I had ever done. But as I walked out of the cafe, I felt a sense of relief that I hadn't felt in weeks. I wasn't going to let Dimitri or Elena define me. I wasn't going to let them dictate my future anymore.